In this presentation, we'll highlight the role of cognitive learning theory as one of the important theories in learning. This presentation is done by Sameh Farid, Shireen Mahmoud, Radwa Mekki, Sara Salahuddin, and Ibrahim Issahouli. What is meant by learning? According to Richard Mayer, learning is the relatively permanent change in a person's knowledge or behavior due to experience. How do people learn? Nobody knows, but there are several learning theories. Among them is behaviorism, where learner understands and remember; constructivism, where learner create and evaluate; cognitivism, where learner recognize and connects; and cognitivism, where learner analyze and apply.
The cognitive learning theory explains how the brain works in order to process and interpret the new information we learn. This implies analyzing the mental process first. The theory also assumes that learning takes place using memory, motivation, and cognition. The concept of the theory describes that forming linkage between known and new information to students facilitates the learning process. The theory is divided into two theories. First one is cognitive and behavioral theory, which concludes that person's environment affects self-concepts, which affects behavior. The second one is the social cognitive theory, which stated that learning occurs as a result of the three interrelated variables, which are behavior, environment, and personal.
Jean Piaget is the father of this theory. He is known of his studies on children development. In his theory, he concluded that age and environment influence the child learning. Consequently, he divided the learning process into 4 different stages: sensory motor stage, pre-operational, concrete, and formal operation stage. In the early 20th century, Vygotsky postulated that socio-cultural context might impact the child's cognitive development, and Vygotsky was highly recognized for his concept of zone of proximal development, which showed that children perform tasks better when they are helped by their skilled peers.
According to cognitive theory, different implications of teaching could take place, such as allowing students to be active learners through interaction in class, develop a student's experience by making field trips, allowing students to make hands-on practice, helping students to develop their own hypotheses by following them to explore answers to questions.
The cognitive approach focuses only on the internal and invisible process that allow people to react to external stimuli. It comes with a lot of strengths, which is why it has gained a lot of followers over the years and has become the preferred method of treatment by many psychologists. The cognitive approach tries to look inward and find out how the brain interprets stimuli. It highlights how cognition greatly affects behavior and why it's important for people to understand how the brain works. This is greatly helpful for those who want to cheat their brain and change their behavior for the better. The best thing about it, it can easily work together with other approaches, as behaviorism, to create a therapy that will bring about positive results. Cognitive therapy takes in at thoughts and beliefs, while behavioral therapy reinforces positive behavior. Combining both of them will reinforce thoughts and emotions.
The main disadvantage of cognitive theory that it relies on cognitive process that could not be directly observed, that this approach may lack the scientific basis because it's based on invisible subjective findings. Moreover, it ignores creative thinking and consciousness, and it questions how one can reach beyond internal representation into reality. Although cognitive theory has its potential power in helping us to understand behavior in very simple manner, but it ignores biology and upbringing in affecting the behavior. Moreover, the input-process-output model is being very mechanistic. In addition that, knowledge itself is given an absolute. Some psychologists argued that Piaget theory is vague about the mechanisms that provide cognitive growth. Moreover, it underestimates the contribution of the social world to cognitive development. Vygotsky theory was also criticized by being overly optimistic and impractical because it requires one-to-one education.
The cognitive theory can be applied in higher education through activities which are geared towards pushing students to work through different problems and situations. Cognitive learning essentially relies on the Bloom's cognitive taxonomy circle, which is about remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Remembering involves activities that rely on asking the student to recall previously learned information to complete the task at hand, like reciting poetry or creating a timeline of important events. For understanding, it involves activities that directly engage students to see how they interpret information, like defending or debating a point of view or listing examples. Applying involves activities that has to do with applying specific skills and knowledge to produce a proper result, such as having students demonstrate procedures in front of class or solving problems. For analyzing, it involves activities that enable students to differentiate or compare between two aspects. Evaluating involves activities that focuses on analyzing information and making judgments based on it, such as constructing a graph to illustrate certain information or creating a pros and cons list. For creating, it involves activities that depend on students to produce original ideas to address prompts, organize thoughts, such as writing an original poem, manual, or guidebook.
To summarize, through this Picha Kucha, we discussed the aspects of cognitive learning theory, its history and its implication in teaching. Furthermore, we discussed the critique for the theory, pros and cons, and finally, how to apply this theory in higher education.